UFC 312 is this weekend live from Australia. The card is kind of trash for a pay per view. There's a couple of fun fights and key fighters on the card, but I really want to touch on the main event. Before we get into it, guys, please like, comment, and subscribe for me, and let's get into this main event preview. Okay, so right before this video, I just rewatched the first fight between Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis, and I honestly don't know how anyone can like convincingly, wholeheartedly say they think one guy won that fight. That fight was so I remember it being, very tight and very competitive, but on the rewatch, I thought I would have a more clear opinion on who won, but I still feel like it's a coin flip. The original time I watched it, I thought Dricus won, but I knew it was still close. And this time, I thought that I would lean a little more towards Sean, but like I said, on the rewatch, I'm still torn. And we can go through this because so many people had different scorecards. If you gave the fight to Sean, I think you gave him 1, 2, and 5. I think that's like the consensus of most people. But I did see some people who had it 1, 3, and 5 for Sean. And then if you gave the fight to Dricus, you had him winning uh, probably 3, 4, 3, 4, and 5, or 2, 3, and 4. Again, like that, those rounds 2 and 3, I think were the closest, um, because there wasn't a whole lot of significant damage done by either guy. Sean was really pumping the jab, and Dricus was blitzing but not landing a lot. So close. I guess if I had to pick who I think won on the second rewatch, I guess I'll go with Dricus again, but it's so fucking tight. But I think going into this rematch, for some reason, I still feel like Sean is the better fighter. Ahead of the first fight, I picked him to win. He was coming off the Izzy win, and I think now we all have a bit more of respect for Dricus because he beat Robert Whitaker and Izzy now. That Izzy defense was a great win, even though Izzy has now lost 3 in a row. You can't judge that win based on that. That fight against Izzy was very impressive. He was getting beat up in those middle rounds, and Izzy was kind of piecing him up and looked like he was going to take over. And then Dricus, lands those big shots on the way to the rear naked choke finish. So Dricus right now is flying high on all cylinders going into the rematch with Sean. But like I said, I still just feel like Sean is overall the cleaner and better fighter. It's just up to him if he's going to make the adjustments to live up to that potential. And Eric Nixick, his head coach, has talked about this a lot, where Sean, he doesn't take a lot of damage. Like if you rewatch the Dricus fight, most of the shots that Dricus throws at Sean that on the first watch we think are landing, like Sean is rolling, those things are bouncing off him. Like Sean's defense is amazing, but you don't get points for defense. So the problem is what Sean does is he uses a lot of leaning, and he gets way out of the way of these shots, which is great because they're not hitting him. But he leans so far back or to the side that he puts himself out of position to throw anything back. And what that does is, yes, you made that guy miss, but you're not returning any activity. You're not landing any counter shots. Like your offensive output is really stunted by that. So it's great that you're not taking damage, but you're not in a position to land your own offense. And when you watch the Costa fight, it was boring because it was one-way traffic the whole time of Costa going backwards. But when Costa would come forward, Sean would slip, duck, dodge, evade, and then he'd come back with a counter. He wasn't throwing himself out of position so much. So that's really a key to me in this rematch with Dricus. Sean cannot lean so far out of the way of these shots that he can't come back and counter. And it's tough because Dricus loves to blitz and throw a lot of strikes all at once. You know, we all have jokes about Dricus looking sloppy, but it works. And he throws in combinations and blitzes a lot. So it is tough to counter because you have to find the right moment to come back. But if there's someone who can do it, I think it's Sean because his boxing is great. So that is the first key to me on the feet. Sean cannot put himself so far out of position that he can't throw back. I think that is the main reason he lost the first fight. It was just a lack of activity. Like, the judges have to go off of damage and what they see. And if all they see is you slipping and dodging, and a lot of those shots they're hearing hit your arms, hit your neck, like hit your shoulders. So from their angle, it may look like it landed. You have to throw offense back. That's key number one. Key number two, I think Sean is, he chooses to just box. But Sean is a very well-rounded guy, and he can mix this fight up a little more if he wants to. And I think that will be another key to victory for him. You don't have to turn it into a wrestling or grappling match, but mix it up. Get in the clinch, dirty box, shoot for a takedown, get the body lock and go for a takedown against the cage. Like, use more of your tools. You aren't yes, you have a primary skill set, but you're not just a boxer in there. You can do more than that, and we've seen it before. He relies too much on just his jab and his clean boxing. He has to mix it up a bit more and have a full MMA arsenal, and he can do it. It's just a matter of him wanting to do it. So those are the major keys for Sean. He needs to not put himself so far out of position that he can't counter, and he has to mix it up a little bit more. And then for Dricus, in my opinion, DC made a great point. I think it was in the second or third round. If Sean is leaning back so far out of position, like his hips are right there. So if Dricus mixes it up more too and follows up those blitzes with a double leg, like that can really help him control this fight because Sean's hips are right there for the taking. Now, if he makes that adjustment that I'm saying, it may not be as wide open, but as far as what we saw on tape in that first fight, that is another thing that Dricus can do, and he did it a few times. He shot for a few takedowns, but he could have done it way more. And say what you want about Dricus, but he is very well-rounded and has a very high variation of strikes. I'm going to make this comparison, and it's not exact, so don't kill me, but John Jones, his main style of striking, especially later in his career, you know, when he's lost a little bit of athleticism and isn't quite as fast as he was at light heavyweight, he has a high variation of single strikes. He doesn't throw a lot of combinations, which is different than Dricus, but I just mean John has a lot of different weapons and he mixes them up. So he'll throw a jab, and then he'll throw a right hand to the body, and then he'll throw an oblique kick, and then he'll throw a head kick. Like, it's very hard to predict a pattern with him. And Dricus kind of has that same thing where he'll throw a question mark kick, and then he'll throw a right hand, and then he'll blitz. Like, he's so awkward and has a very strange style. It's hard to pick up on tendencies and patterns with him. In the end, though, this fight is going to be another very close war, technical chess match, in my opinion. Like, these guys are so evenly matched, and they both have such great styles for each other that no matter how many times they fight, I think all of their fights are going to be this close as was the first one. And both the guys have the ability to beat the other. Both of them in the first fight had great cardio into the fifth round, and they were both keeping up a high level of activity. Sean really needs to, yes, pump the jab out there. Of course, that is his bread and butter, but he has to throw more significant strikes. He has to put more combinations together and more damage on Dricus. Give the judges, you know, it sounds stupid because it's like maybe Sean really did do more damage in the first fight, but as far as visually, the judges aren't seeing that. All they're seeing is you pumping your jab out there. And in the fifth round, he finally started to put that right hand behind it. That is going to be his moneymaker in this fight. He has to throw more power shots. Yes, pump the jab out there, that is what you do, but follow it up with more significant strikes. Mix it up more. That is the key to success against Dricus in this fight. Sean has to mix it up more, and he cannot get too far out of position. Because Dricus does have openings. We saw in the Izzy fight. Because Dricus's offense is just nonstop. It's nonstop offense. That is like his best defense. He leaves himself open for shots, though. And yes, Sean and Izzy are very different, but they're both very good at picking their moments and picking certain shots. So Sean really needs to throw more significant strikes. This fight is going to be a technical war, and in the end, I am going to pick Strickland again. Even though he lost the first fight, I still, for whatever reason, believe he can make the correct adjustments to come out on top in this rematch. That is all I got for you guys. That is my main event preview for UFC 312. Saturday in Australia, Strickland versus Duplessis 2. There is a couple more fights on this card. We have Tatiana Suarez and Zhang Weili. I'm going with Zhang Weili. There's some heavyweight fights on there. There's Toporia's brother. There's a few key fighters on there, but the main event is what we are all here for. So that is all I got for you, and I will see you in the next one.